How to Win a War the Jewish Way. And he's known for being YouTube's most popular rabbi. I met him on YouTube. I'm one of his more than 400,000 followers. And I am just thrilled and honored to have him here today to discuss the pressing issue for all of us. So, Rabbi Manis, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Land of Israel Fellowship. You just have to click unmute on the bottom left part of your screen, and then we'll finally be able to hear you. So if you click on unmute, we'll be able to. Excellent.
Got it.
How are you today?
Thank you. Thank God. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome to our fellowship. This is sort of a ragtag group of misfits from all over the world. I think we represent about 50 countries. Every person here has a different opinion, comes from a different place. All of us love the Torah. We're all sort of trying to figure it out. So to have you come here today is a real pleasure. I myself served in the Givati Brigade. I've served in the IDF now for more than 20 years. Just a year and a half ago, I was honorably discharged at the age of 44 with 6 children. And then lo and behold, the war came up, and here I am once again with an M16 in my hand guarding our farm. So you just never know. I guess you're never really released from Tzivas Hashem. You're always sort of a soldier in the army of Israel, one way or another. So I want to introduce you also to my partner, Ari Abramowitz. He's also the co-founder of the Land of Israel Network and Fellowship. He's right here with us today. So thank you very much. So I guess we'll get right to it, Rabbi. We have a lot to discuss. And I really want to do is, I read your manuscript. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. And I'm just going to kick off with a quote at the very beginning of the book. And actually in the middle of the book, but this was one of my favorite quotes because it was a story that I didn't know. And here's what it says. At the UN's 60th anniversary, former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon came to give a speech. He spoke like a wise grandfather speaking to his grandchildren. Quote, I arrived to you from Jerusalem, Israel's eternal capital for over 3,000 years, he said. I stand before you at the gate of nations as a Jew, a representative of an ancient people. Unabashedly expressing his Jewish pride, he went on to say, the Jewish people have a long memory, originating with our father Abraham and continuing with the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. Now, the substantive remainder of his speech may be debated, but this was a moment from which all should take inspiration. Sharon restored the relationship between Jews and the nations to its natural order, where we are the grandfather of the world. And so I love that framing. And I think that's exactly how the people of Israel should see themselves, as maybe an older brother, but used to like as the grandfather of the world. I feel like that's even more mechubad, more honorable. And in some ways, I think that that's the transformation that's happening now in the hearts of Israel, because you just see Israelis now. You see secular soldiers just grabbing tzitzit, putting on tefillin, listening to Jewish music, trying to find a deeper root to find the source of strength to go out and fight this war. And even the Israelis that are at home are being forced to question themselves, like, what is this about? The Hamas and all these haters of Israel hate us so much for being Jewish. And it's like, it's forced them to turn inward, because being Jewish, like that's not even important to me, but it's so important for them. I mean, they hate me for being Jewish, and I don't even know what being Jewish means as an Israeli. And I see that there's an awakening that's happening in Israel now. And I guess I wanted to ask you first and foremost, do you see this same awakening happening in the Jews outside of Israel? Or is this sort of just kind of like passing them by and they're kind of doing their own thing?
Oh, it's happening everywhere. And just want to mention that Sharon got a standing ovation for that speech. He was critical of the UN. He says, we remember, as Jews, we remember what happened thousands of years ago. We also remember what happened in this chamber 60 years. For 60 years, he was chastising them, and he got a standing ovation. So the other beautiful thing about his speech is he didn't qualify everything. According to our Bible, we had a grandfather called Abraham. No, there's no according to anything. We had a grandfather, Avraham. That's the fact. And I'm coming from the capital of Israel, which is Jerusalem, not according to our tradition, not according to the rabbis, not according to history, just the fact. It was beautiful. Rabbis should learn to speak like that.
Yeah. Well, that's really what I want to center this conversation around, like identity, and even more than identity, which maybe Ariel Sharon wasn't able to fully express. But I want to talk here about emunah. I want to talk about faith in this war, because I feel like your book on war is, it's filled with wisdom, it's filled with Torah, but ultimately there's sort of a pillar of faith that has to sort of be asserted in order to really apply the principles that you speak about. And when I think about faith, if I had to say it in one sentence to explain what emunah really should mean nowadays, it's maybe just a way of existing in the world that when we look at what's happening in our lives, when we look at what's happening in Israel, realizing that everything that's happening to Israel is happening for Israel. Nothing here is a coincidence. Everything here is a part of a process. Everything that's happening here is to straighten us out, to set us back on the path that we were destined to walk, to help us become the people that Hashem chose us to be, who He created us to be, to make us stronger, to make us more united, to make us more connected with ourselves, to make us more in tune with why we are in this land to begin with. And ultimately, hopefully, to bring us back into a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so I want to quote this from your book. This is what you wrote. An even deeper way of understanding this lies in the fact that concealed within the enemy is a divine spark whose purpose is not to intimidate or frighten us, but to elevate us. The hidden role of the so called Palestinians in this conflict is to lift us high above our own sense of powerlessness, stop feeding the enemy with our fear, and courageously embody the triumphant power of God. Now, when I read that, I am like, yes. But I really want to understand, what exactly does that mean for us to courageously embody the triumphant power of God? Like, it sounds amazing. But then I think, like, okay, but where does that leave Jeremy Gimpel? Where does that leave Ari Abramowitz? Where does that leave just the simple Jew that's either living in Israel or outside of Israel, or just anyone that wants to kind of figure this thing out? What does that really mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. To say it in simple English, it's giving us the confidence to be who we are. And we are God's voice to the world. We are the chosen people. We stood at Mount Sinai. We gave the world the Bible. We gave the world the Ten Commandments. We taught the world that there is a God who runs the world, and there's a Mashiach who will perfect the world. We gave all that to the world. What are we giving them now? It's sad when the focus of the entire world is on Israel, and all Israel has to say is, we have a right to defend ourselves. That's it. That's your great message to the world. This is the chosen people speaking. Every kid on a playground says, I have a right to defend myself. What do we need to have the courage to say? See, you're talking about the Mishkan, bringing God down so that He dwells in us, means we don't need faith and we don't need emunah. God is real. Everyday life is godly. No leap of faith. That's our job, to bring God from something you believe in to something you live with every day. It is absolutely true. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Anyone who doesn't know that doesn't know anything. And there's no more debate. I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to debate it. I'm not going to prove it. If you don't know that Israel is the capital of Israel, go back to school. You have no business debating the issue. If you don't know that the Jewish people are the chosen people, then you know nothing. And I'm not going to debate it anymore. It's done. That's called bringing God down to earth.
Okay, so I want to kind of bring it from this side now, because what's the issue? I think, for 2,000 years, Jews weren't able to fight back. There's a legendary story about Mordechai Analevich, who was one of the warrior leaders in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And they say that as a young boy, when he would be harassed or attacked by Jew haters, he would fight back because he was a tough Jew. And they would say, "You're not a Jew. Jews don't fight back. You're not a Jew." And he was like, "No, I am a Jew and I will fight back." But that was like the anomaly. That was like, whoa, that Jew is fighting back. And even today, it's like the Jews, they're so